Well, hello YouTubers, and welcome back to the Whole Smishel channel and another tool review. In today's episode of Duckin the Fog, we're going to be looking at a sandblaster cabinet. This is one of those cheap Chinese ones, probably most likely. It was offered for about 400 bucks in eBay, and they set it down to 330, so I decided, okay, now it's time to buy. So anyway, here it is. This is 2 of the 3 packages that it came in. This one came with a dust collector. They offer the same thing for about $100 less, or 100 euros less, without the dust collector. But my experience has been, if you're going to have a sandblasting cabinet, the thing fills up with dust pretty quick, and so if you have a means of getting rid of the dust and clearing the air in the cabinet so you can see what you're doing, it's definitely well worth the investment of the dust collector. So anyway, well, I'm going to be switching around to the other camera here right shortly, and I'll be putting it on the mag base, and we'll do the unboxing and inventory of the packages and see what all came with it. I'm guessing I'm going to have to do some upgrading on the gun and that kind of thing. Keith Rucker, he bought a similar unit and did a review on his, and that's what he ended up doing. So I'm guessing, yeah, that's probably what I'm going to have to do too. But anyway, this is the whole schmear as it came. The delivery service was GLS. They actually delivered the packages in remarkably good shape. There's no visible damage anywhere on any of the boxes, so that's a real big plus for GLS. I've never used them as far as their delivery service goes. I've been a recipient of GLS on several occasions through eBay purchases, and so far so good, so there's no complaints there. But anyway, we'll get on to the unboxing here. So let's begin with the dust collector here. Okay, we got a rubber grommet here, probably for the connection between the housing of the dust collector and the cabinet itself. Here's the dust collector unit. And a plate. Let's see here. Other than that, nothing in the box. So, set this aside. Oh, we have some mounting hardware here. Almost overlooked that. Some screws with washers. So, take a cursory look at it. Alrighty. We got a little reclaimer here at the bottom with a cyclone. This is the bottom. This is actually going to get installed like so on the unit later on. So let's set him aside over here, like over here. And open box 1 or 2. Okay, I will say the box that came in, it's double layered corrugated, so they definitely took some good care in packaging. This seems to be the funnel portion of it. Let's see if we can find a place to lay all this stuff. This is a thingamabob. And here we have Dumaflachi, put together with some zip ties. Okay, here's our window. Set him off to the other side over here. More of the cabinet. Okay, this is real thin sheet metal here, so it's not a heavy unit. Here's one of the legs. So if there's anything left, like screws or what have you, nada. Okay, here's this box. Box 2 of 2. Yeah, here's all the rest of the thing. The actual guts of it. Okay, here's the front. Kabinetje.
Was Sandstrahl?
Ja gut, du weißt wahrscheinlich nicht, wie sie eine Hand ist, wo Sandstrahl Medium hier rumfahren. Die Tobias hat es irgendwo hingestellt, ich weiß jetzt nicht genau wo, ich muss mal fragen. Okay.
Was hat nur Sandstrahl? Gell, du nimmst Luft, bin ich im Bild.
Ja, ich weiß nicht, ob dem Bild ist. Kann ich ja noch rausschneiden. Das sieht noch nicht schön aus. Also, die Dichtung wird schon aufgeklebt. Lestes Josef Mariage. Scheinbar schwer am Saugen an dem Dach.
Hast du denn noch Farbe?
Ja. Wir haben da Here we have the box with the gun and probably the poop sheet and assembly instructions and all that stuff. Take a quick peek-see. Dump that in here. And here's the on-off switch for the light. This is, looks like the protection box for it. And we have something or other, the transformer for the light. Some of the other hardware. This is for the legs, the feet. This is for something or other, some nylon tape, some hose. And here we have, aha, pistoli. Alright, well, there do not seem to be any instructions with this pig, so it's going to be by guessing and by goshing. Okay, we have here screws and nuts. Luckily, they did a real nice job with this thing. They have it marked for what the hardware is, so good on them for that. Says what everything is for: metal washer for legs, screws and nuts for flange and switch box, light clips, door lock, frame screws and nuts. So anyway, I'm going to bring you guys back when I get this thing assembled, trying to make you sit through the assembly of it. And, you know, it's going to be by guessing and by goshing anyway. So I'm going to start with the legs, putting stuff together and seeing what I can come up with. I don't see, like I say, any kind of a instruction sheet here on what goes where, so we're guessing and b'goshin. We got screws and nuts for body, 2 sets extra. Okay, so 85 sets, whatever that means, probably 85 screws. So anyway, like I said, we'll bring you guys back when I get this thing some semblance of put together. And go from there. Well, YouTubers, as you can see, we finally got this thing put together. I've got the other camera. I'm going to go handheld here in a minute, and we'll show you some of the details of the sandblasting cabinet here. Some things are good on it, some things are okay, some things are abysmally bad. The fit of the holes was okay, with a little bit of pushing and pulling and tweaking. You could get them to line up and kind of get them, the screws to go through the holes. Now the vacuum unit here had to be mounted. You got to drill separate holes. Unfortunately, I was guessing and b'goshin. My suggestion is don't do it because the mounting plate that is on the back here, you'll get to see that here as we do a walk around with the other camera. There's a grommet that seals off the hole. There is a larger hole in there for a larger vacuum unit or dust collector unit. And so the one that was with this unit had to be drilled and mounted separately. Kind of a pain in the ass, so just a heads up. Other than that, the thing went together okay. The pure build time was about 6 hours. I did find the assembly instructions. They were in with the window pane in the bubble wrap. You just couldn't see it because all the other stuff that was in there with it. There is a separate, there's a Visqueen. There's 5 sheets of Visqueen to put on the glass. There is a pane of glass, and then there's a pane of plexiglass that goes on top on the very outside, and then those Visqueen things get stuck to the inside. There's 5 extra sheets. There was one already on the glass pane, so I didn't have to take one out of the bag, although I did. I ended up putting it back. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling here. The one thing I liked about this is they didn't spare the expense on the neoprene gaskets. These are neoprene. They seal fairly well. There's a double sandwich between the funnel down here and the cabinet itself, because there is like a grate that goes in between there. And so on both sides of the grate, they put a nice thick, about an 8mm, 5/16 thick neoprene gasket on both sides. Of course, getting through it was kind of a pain in the ass, but other than that, awesome work. Now, the placement of the gasket, it's a different story. I'd like to have been drinking whatever they were drinking, or, well, I don't smoke, so whatever they were smoking, it had to have been some pretty good stuff, because I can pee straighter than these guys laid the gasket down on the thing. Now, the other thing I have to give it a fail on is the thickness of the material. Now, I'm going to have to go back at some other point in time and reinforce these edges here with a thicker piece of material, you know, a piece of strip iron, probably like a 2 or 3 millimeter, that will absorb some of the torque, because when the screws get torqued down, this is really, really thin material. It's 0.4 millimeter. So it's really thin. It really gives a lot. I realize you get what you paid for. For 330 bucks, I guess you get what you get what you pay for. And I would say the layer of paint on both sides is probably thicker than the material itself. So that kind of gives you an idea how it's not flimsy, but it's not exactly the sturdiest of material. My Trabant has a little bit thicker sheet metal than this thing does. But the legs are okay. They're 1.5 millimeter thick steel, so that's a good thing. The other thing I don't like about it is on here, and we'll go through that on the go round, is the connector for the compressed air is right here underneath the door. This needs to go. I'm going to have to move this at some other point in time, because when you're loading and unloading the thing, especially if you got something heavy going in there, this is going to be vulnerable, and chances are you're going to probably drop something on it and break it off, or something crazy like that's going to happen. So anyway, let me shut this camera off that I'm talking to and get this one here, and we'll do a little bit of a walk around and show you guys some of the particulars, the good things, the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly. So we'll get with it. As I was just mentioning, the air connection down here is right here in the way. Like I said, it's kind of vulnerable. They give you 2 of these connectors, although the one on the inside is the one for this kind of hose. They give you 2 of them. I ended up having to swap one to actually be able to hook up an air hose to this thing, so that we can hook the air to it. Here's a little peek on the inside. Gloves are all mounted. Now, these gloves aren't all rubber. These are some kind of I don't know what this kind of material is, but it's not rubber. It's like a carbon fiber canvas. And of course, the gloves are rubber coated. They got a good grip on them. So the gloves are okay. Down there's the exit for the discharge for the bottom of the funnel. The pistole is laying over there in the corner, and up there's the light. I'm going to turn it on here in a little bit when we get this thing filled and give it its first run. So here's the front. As you can see, the paint job on it doesn't look too bad. There's not a whole lot of orange peel on it. They kept it in. Kept it in within reason. Now, if you can look closely, there's some other places on here where you can really see how the screws pull the metal. The other thing that I gotta bitch about here, these screws here are a self-tapping screw. The hole they put in there was slightly too big, and the screws are made from a really soft steel, and so they don't grab very well. I'm gonna have to end up replacing those. Our door latch here, which is surprisingly stout. And here's one of the plugs. Now this is for something for, you know, like a different kind of suction unit, what have you. So I ended up using this blind hole plug here and just plugging them up. Now I did have to put this on the lathe. The other thing that I got to bitch about here, the fit and finish on the plastic parts was not the best. I had to deburr all the plastic parts. This I had to actually put on the lathe and make it fit so it would fit in the hole. Here's our on-off switch for the light, and up here the on-off switch. You can turn this around, which is what I did, so you can actually reach this switch from the front of the cabinet rather than having to go around the back. Here it is in the back, and we got a little funnel down here. Now I'm guessing this gizmo here is to check whether or not the cyclone down here is full, because down here you got a little flapper here to open it up. And you can pop the top off up here and get access to the filter and blow it out every once in a while. And of course we got this shelf down here. I just laid this stuff down here for the time being. Now here you can really see how the screws are deforming the sheet metal and pulling it in. As you can see here, the neoprene gasket. This thing is assembled as is, the way it came out of the box. So, like I say, whatever they were drinking or smoking that day, it must have been some pretty good stuff. Yeah, same thing down to here. Get off me, fly. There's another big strip of neoprene gasket sticking out there. Should be all right though. I would recommend that, you know, once you get one of these things assembled, to go over all the edges here with some silicone caulk and caulk these edges so that it definitely is dust tight. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm probably going to end up disassembling this thing and putting it away again at some point in time. And here we have the label, warning label, nice and crooked, all in English. So now we got it filled with some Sandblast medium. Got an old rusty wheel here. We're just going to throw that in here and get it hooked up to here, and we're going to give it its first whirl. This is the first time this thing's been used. Light is on. Now this thing here is insanely loud. I tested around it here a little while ago, and it is insanely loud. So unfortunately, you know, fortunately for the viewers, the camera won't pick it up quite as badly as it sounds on my own ears. But rest assured, this sucker's loud. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and fire this thing up and see how it works. Now the interesting thing is the gloves inflate as soon as you open it, as soon as you fire that thing up. But the gun isn't working at all. Maybe I've got too much sand in the bottom of this thing. I'm going to drain some out and see if that picks it up any better, because it's just not picking it up. I'm not getting any discharge from the gun at all. So let me bring you guys back here after I get that situation corrected. Well, here we go. Here's some of the first test run. This pistol, this sandblasting gun likes about 7 bar. The shot pressure was at 8, and so I put a regulator on it, regulated down to 7, and immediately got some satisfactory results. I did try to let some of the sand out of the funnel down there. It says not to fill it more than half full or 40 pounds. It's kind of hard to gauge. You know, I got just a bucket full here, so you know, gauge it, 40 pounds or half full. So I just poured it about half full, and it seems to work just fine. There are some little leaks here and there, but that's to be expected. Like I said, given the build quality of this thing, there's some dust along the tops here and everywhere. I ran it without the dust collector on, just for giggles, to see how it would act and see how tight it was, and that's the result. You got some dust accumulation here, not bad, but after a couple hours you're definitely going to see it. So you definitely want to run this thing with the dust collector on if you have it. Other than that, I guess it'll work for what we got here. So there were some other things I was going to crab about. Oh yeah, the screws. The quality of the screws were questionable at best. Some of them, some of them are pretty soft. Others, the cross point in the head was full of zinc when they were zinc plated, so you couldn't actually turn them. There were half washers. The count on the screws was off. They didn't supply enough screws. Normally they give you, a handful too many rather than half dozen too few, and that's what happened here. Is I ended up with 3 or 4 screws too few. Other screws I didn't need at all, because some of the things that I were mounting didn't really need to be mounted, so I could leave those out, but nevertheless I had to supplement some of the screws with some from the shop. So anyway, onward. Well, YouTubers, that's kind of a brief overview of the 220 liter cabinet sandblaster, or sandblasting cabinet. Again, you get what you pay for. There are some issues with the unit that could be improved upon. There are other things that are well done. The choice of materials in some places is really good, in other places, well, kind of, sort of. It seems to do the job. Now, the one thing I did do is I played with the air pressure a little bit, and the instruction manual says between 6 and 8 bar for PSI down below here to operate the cabinet at. Again, the inlet here for the compressed air is in a bad spot. This is definitely going to get moved. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an external regulator on it. The shot pressure is normally 10 bar, which is I think around 150 psi, which is a little bit too high. It wasn't really picking up the medium for some strange reason. And I was blowing a lot of air, spitting out a few little kernels here and there, but not really picking it up until I dropped the pressure down to 6 bar. Then it started picking up then it started working relatively well. Now, I've worked with one when I was in college. Worked great. Of course, that unit probably cost somewhere around 10 grand as well. So The University of Idaho didn't spare any expense when it came to that. And of course the suction system on it was a lot quieter than this thing. My ears are still ringing from the hour of use or so that I've had it on now, cleaning up some tire wheels for the Trabant. So I got a set of wheels I need to repaint, and so I'm going to clean them up and you know, sandblast them and repaint them, and then take them and get new tires mounted. But anyway, for what it is, it seems to do the job. I do recommend getting a different pistol for it. The medium that I had is just something we had kicking around the shop, so I went ahead with that. I'm not even sure what it is, to be honest with you. Looks like aluminum oxide. It could be something else, who knows. They say not to use aluminum oxide in this thing, but in silica-based abrasives for the silicosis. So you know, it's a safety thing. But as far as the performance of the machine goes, it doesn't seem to phase it one way or the other. So we're just going to go ahead and use this medium until it ceases to have a decent function, and go from there. Well, like I say, external regulator is something I definitely recommend that you add on to it. Different pistol. And then later on, again, reinforcing the corners of this thing with you know, some other flat iron that will help spread out the load of the torque of the screws, so that the thing is airtight. Now it isn't airtight. I ran it a little while without the dust collector on, and it started leaking a little bit, so it's not completely airtight. So when you go to assemble these things, what I would recommend you do is probably run a little bead of silicone, RTV or something like that along the edge, or acrylic, anything to kind of give it some additional seal to keep the dust contained within the unit. The neoprene seals do work well, so it gets a high praise from me on that department. In typical Chinese fashion, of course, there were some issues with the screws, there were issues with the holes, yada 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 yada. It is what it is. Overall, I give it a passing grade. I think it will serve my needs adequately. We shall see. But other than that, that kind of wraps it up for this episode of Duckin the Fog and tool review. I realized that, you know, the assembly process, I didn't want to bore you guys. It took me over 6 hours to assemble this thing. So it wasn't as straightforward as I thought in some respects. The one thing I had to do was go back and re-loosen fasteners and then retighten, and back and forth and back and forth. So there was a lot of back and forth because I didn't have the instruction manual handy right off the get-go. It was there, it was present. Like I say, it was hiding in the bubble wrap for the window up here, and so I didn't see it right off the bat, and found it essentially when the assembly was, you know, pretty much done. So anyway, like I say, there was some issues here and there with different aspects of the thing. Got them ironed out. So I think it'll work. So with that, I do thank you all for stopping by. For those of you who are new to the channel, please don't forget to add a subscription, give it a thumbs up, and all that good jazz. If you have any thoughts, comments, critiques, ideas, or suggestions, by all means, put it down in the comment section below. A little bit of traffic there is always good to get the ratings of the videos up. I realize I've been a little preoccupied lately. I haven't been able to get as many videos out as I should in order to foster the channel's growth within the YouTube parameters. So, you know, share it, like it, get all the good jazz. help it get around a little bit and make the channel grow a little bit. And for those of you who would like to support the channel in other meaningful ways, all I ask is let the ads play. I realize it's kind of a pain in the butt, but in the time that the ads are playing, you can always go grab yourself a beer or a soda or a cup of coffee, whatever your beverage of choice is, and sit down and enjoy the video. So with that, thanks for stopping by, and hope to see you all again in the next video.